Good morning or good day, folks. I wanted to introduce modules 8.1 and 8.2 to you. This is the most difficult portion, I think, of your reading assignments. There's just so much if you're going to do the full reading. I've given you alternate, like the light version, if you will, your light beer version, so you can watch your bikini beer or enjoy it and still not lose your figure, so to speak. Um, We're talking about virtue ethics. And I tell you, what's prompted me to do the video is the discussion thread so far on 8.1. I have to just, commend Rory and Cody for spending some time in the threads, really going through and thinking deeply. If you don't read the threads because they're voluntary, that's okay if you're not participating, but I would urge you to look at the interchange between Rory and Cody, and including myself here and there. I throw in a couple of like little tidbits that I might be able to add to the conversation. Um, and I'll touch on what I think is so important and what they're talking about. But listen, we're talking about character development. We've read in Boss, the development of your moral conscience, how that happens, and how it might not happen, how it could be damaged along the way. But now we're taking another look at developing who you are as a human being from a point of virtue. And what is virtue? Um, Living a good life, right? Doing things right. Well, what does that really mean? Well, when we look at Boss, she looks at virtue and she defines it as having courage, which we've talked about a bit, honesty, and compassion. These are moral values, she kind of says, makes you a virtuous person. Being truthful, being courageous, and being compassionate. Now, I believe if you go to Rory's post in 8.1, she talks about the truthfulness and how some people are very truthful, or should I say, um, they express the truth, but they may do it in a way that is caustic or bitter. And why are they doing it at that point? Is it really a virtue? Rory points out, hey, then it becomes a vice. It's almost as though they enjoy attacking the other person or always finding fault, right? Oh, teacher, what you put on the board is wrong. Okay, that's fine. We can erase it, we'll fix it. But what's your intent? Why do you do so? Her point is kind of maybe encapsulated in that discretion might be the better part of valor, right? Um, Being truthful, but how you couch the truth, or maybe sometimes you don't, right? So we think about honesty, courage, and compassion. Another thing regarding being truthful, Cody brought this up. Thomas Aquinas has these cardinal virtues along with the principal Roman Catholic or Christian virtues of faith, hope, and charity. But the cardinal virtues, one of them is temperance, which is to withhold yourself, to put a brake or a governor on your actions so you don't go too far, right? Because every virtue, as Rory has said, can turn into a vice. Every strength can become a weakness if it's unchecked. So even your courage needs to be tempered, right? Something I learned. I mean, as an auditor, my first, well, I don't know how many years as an auditor, I was noted as being a bull in a china shop, and I kind of learned, it's good to be aggressive and assertive, but um, you also are dealing with human beings, and so I had to temper. I tempered my auditing style, especially when I left auditing and I got into negotiating contracts for the government. You need to have a different demeanor. So you grow into these things. So Boss talks about virtue and that it's a personal development type of thing. And it is not prescriptive. And that's one of the problems with it in a way. Whereas deontology is quite prescriptive, the do's and don'ts of ethics. But does it really help you change on the inside? This is where the holistic personal introspection. And again, I point you to, I believe it was Rory, who brilliantly pointed out we don't spend time really thinking in solitude about who we are, what we did in the day, or what we intend doing in the day, and cultivating our sentiments. We're busy rationalizing our actions and we're moving fast, right? We're following the news, but really, we're not taking care of ourselves, you know? So think about that when you read Boss, whether you do the full robust reading or you do the wimpy light beer version. I get it. That's why I give it to you, because I drink light beers myself every so often. I try not to drink much, as you know. Okay, virtue ethics. So when we go to Duska kind of talks about you being a good person, a good professional, and you got to cultivate this character, kind of like what Boss is saying. So I think you're going to see similarities in the readings there. Um, what Duska does say, though, that the ethical behavior comes from inside, right? Pretty much. It's prompted from inside. And that's why you have to focus on the inside and look in places. I was having a conversation with one of you, and, I understand this can be challenging, this class, this course. It can be uncomfortable. Um, and some of you might be, wondering, hey, what's really happening here? Well, what's happening here is you're examining yourself in light of these very intelligent people, these social scientists, and these professionals in accounting. We're trying to get us to elevate our game of ethics because we know the system's broken. Whichever system, there's corruption everywhere. You might come across in Duska the Aristotelian terminology, eudaimonia, which basically means living a good, full life, and that at the end of your days, as one of the Greek mythologies, my sister used to always quote it. I forgot who it was from, but it was a line from a Greek mythology. Reckon no man or woman happy until their last day. So, being joyful, in other words, living a full and virtuous life, has nothing really to do with your feelings of happiness and, having a great time, going out with the girls tonight, that kind of thing. No, it's an inner state of peace and being and tranquility that basically says, I'm cool. Not that I'm cool, but inside, I'm cool. Everything's good. The world could be burning around me, but I'm good. And that's where Aristotle's coming from. So you want to live, hopefully, a well lived life, and you can't do that without what Rory so beautifully said, without contemplating who you are, whether it's through a religious practice. Some people believe in meditation, such as yoga, um, where you get in tune really with who you are and with those things that are not good within you. You know that they're there. So, um, going back now to Cody, Cody brings up these in his discussion thread, the cardinal virtues from St. Thomas Aquinas, prudence, which is basically wisdom. These are supposed to be, from a Christian point of view, the most important. That's why they call them cardinal virtues that form the foundation of everything else. So you need to be wise in your decision making, balance things, and not make decisions just purely off of emotions. Justice, you need to treat people fair. Kind of think about being good Samaritan, right, in a way too. Um, so then there's fortitude, which is courage. We talked about courage. And remember how we temper that courage. And the last one is temperance, okay? Being able to guard yourself from excesses and whatever. So when you read the discussion threads that Rory and Cody have so brilliantly given us to think about, a lot of 8.1 comes to life. I can't do it any better other than point you there. So Duska is telling us pretty much to live a good life, you got to live it from within, okay? Um, he believes that virtue will complement deontology and utilitarianism. Okay, because they're a foundation, as Thomas Aquinas would say, they would probably form a foundation for most ethical frameworks that we've studied. But in particular, Duska is saying deontology and utilitarianism, which are kind of at the forefront of our accounting profession, right? As ethical guideposts, if you will. You move to 8.2, and we go to plant, doing the right thing. Plant gives you 5 principles: respect for autonomy, that we each have our own responsibility in the choices we make. Now, that autonomy was taken away recently with the vaccine mandates for COVID. A lot of controversy there, but now people are going back and saying, yeah, that was quite a screw up, right? Putting old people in nursing homes and locking them in and them dying, also bad. So, respect for autonomy. Non malfeasance, Plant says, basically don't do harm, right? Don't hurt people. Don't go out of your way to hurt people. And this is where Roy was saying being overly truthful or truthful with a hidden motive is not virtuous. It's a vice. Plant then says beneficence, the opposite of malfeasance. So just don't sit back and say, well, you walk by a stranger who may have just been brutally attacked and you don't add to the attack. You don't search for their wallet and then take it and run off or grab their jewelry. But what good are you doing? Plant says just sitting back and being quiet while people are being forced to become vaccinated or lose their jobs and have to maybe foreclose on their homes and, not send their kids to college anymore. These are true stories. How people suffered financially, let alone emotionally and physically from some of the vaccine injuries. Where were you in that discussion? Well, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't say it was a good thing to do. Well, did you try to get it stopped? Did you express your concerns that the autonomy, that a person's right to informed consent was taken? This is just an example. Some of you might not agree, but this is an example that I think a lot of people now are seeing did in fact happen. Which leads us to the fourth principle of justice. Treat people fairly and equitably at all times. And the last one, fidelity, loyalty, right? Keeping your commitments. So Plant goes over these, right? Um, he does say you have to balance these principles like you do with anything else, like even Thomas Aquinas would say temperance on all, right? Although prudence, he says, is the most important, the wisest. One would always consider temperance, I guess. But so Plant talks about balancing your justice, your faithfulness or loyalty, um, respect for autonomy. Part of the argument with the vaccine mandate was, if you didn't take the vaccine, you could infect others and harm others. And that's what you would have to say is a reasonable justification, balancing, right? But again, once evidence, which early on unfortunately was ignored, that the vaccine did not stop the propagation, the government should have taken their foot off the accelerator for sure. But I digress in a way, forgive me. Integrity, we go, and Plant talks about it again. Integrity is about avoiding cognitive dissonance, the difference between who you say you are and what you do, that reconciliation. Some of you have it. I can clearly see it in your writings. And some of you rationalize it away. And that's okay. Temporarily, it's going to be good for you, right? You might wind up, doing very well in this class and overall in your professional life. But there will come a time when you'll be confronted, even with yourself and say, hey, did I really deal with this issue I had that brought me to drink? Did Dom really deal with that? Or did I just kind of sweep it under the rug and just put a band aid over it? Rory does a beautiful job explaining Plant's balancing, where in Rory's post, Rory says, look, in some ways I'm driven by sentiment, emotion, feelings. Well, who isn't? We got five senses, right? We're created with five senses. So that's to guide us, to help us walk through life. So Rory's saying, hey, look, I make decisions that way. However, I balance it and I temper those decisions with the principles that I know I have, those core values. And in turn, when I have a core value that I believe is possibly being violated or maybe, acted upon me in a way that shouldn't be, I then use my sentiments to kind of check it. I think it's beautiful. It's like a seesaw, trying to keep perfect balance. Sentiment and principles or values or virtues, right? So again, outstanding. Shout out to Rory. Shout out to Cody. I have to tell you, outstanding. I mean, every week you write, I enjoy reading your work. I learn from it. But this 8.1, brilliant. Both of you. Thank you. Challenges to integrity. Plant goes on and he talks about organizational culture, fear, retaliation, and personal gain are all reasons why we don't blow the whistle. We don't do something beneficent to help people who have just been brutally hurt. We just leave them on the curb. Oh, it's not my job. I call 911. I'll let the police deal with it. Or it's someone else's problem, right? Um, the old saying, no good deed goes unpunished. So why should I do a good deed if I want to get punished? Well, a virtuous person would say, that comes with territory. What do you expect to be rewarded for doing good? No, doing good. The reward of doing good is just doing the good. That's what we forget. How many people give money to organizations? And they feel so good. Oh, I feel good. I donated to the Cancer Awareness Month or whatever. Oh, you're doing it maybe to make yourself feel good. No, the doing good is just giving them money and walking away and not, patting yourself on the back or pounding your chest saying, look at me, look at what I did. No, that's not virtue. So there are times where our integrity will be eroded. And Isabella, I want to use an example that you've given me. And Isabella brought up a wonderful example of integrity and courage, where she writes about her uncle um, in a country, foreign country. Um, I don't want to give away the occupation, but it's a professional occupation. And in this country, there's a degree of corruption. And her uncle, to his credit, is standing up and saying, no, I will not participate in what you are asking or requiring me to do. So far, the uncle's been fine, but I could sense in Isabella's writing, she's concerned. But at the same time, she points to a hero. She doesn't call him a hero, I'm calling him a hero. He's a standard for her. It would be very easy because, like we're seeing in this country, unfortunately, if you just think differently, you can be killed. It's ridiculous. It's insane. Other countries where there's corruption, more corruption, even though we have a significant amount of it that's being uncovered day by day. Other countries, it's almost cultural. If you don't go along, they might retaliate in very brutal ways. We think we have it hard standing up to a boss that asks us to create a fictitious journal entry. Think about people like Isabella's uncle and the situation they could be facing. There are many people around the world that stand up to bullies, and it takes a lot of courage. So when you think about all this, understand that we're trying to increase our professionalism and fulfill our duty to the public as CPAs and as accountants. Some of you are not doing it on your jobs, and you know you're not, because I wasn't either during certain periods in my career. You kind of just do what they tell you to do, even though you know you could do better, you should do better, which will be your paper number 3, by the way. Okay? You will identify in paper 3 that work product, that deliverable, maybe that relationship, and how you're going to make it better. Okay? So, with that being said, I'm going away for 3 weeks. I'm going to do my best to stay plugged in. I released modules ahead of time. You're working on your paper 2. I put out a prompt. Listen, other than that, I think most of you are doing very, very well. Keep up the good work. If you have any concerns, I can most likely be contacted through WhatsApp. I'm going to try to get a SIM card for my phone with an Italian phone number. The ATT roaming charges are kind of nuts. $10 a day. I'm going to be there for 3 weeks. It's just I could afford it, but I'd rather spend that money on some cappuccino, a nice croissant. Right now, the Italian croissants are great. Them filled with Nutella, cream, chocolate, jellies, and just plain for you boring people. But anyway, or those of you that are more calorie conscious. So do your best. We're, just about halfway through. All right. Thank you again for your participation. And again, shout out to the 3 of you Isabella, Rory, and Cody. You brought some real life to what we're talking about in Module 8. Okay, thank you.